I remember to turn it on. I had one of her sessions up about 5 or 10 minutes into it before I forgot to turn it on, and it looks kind of strange there. I'd just like to welcome everybody here, and I know that summertime is a very, very busy time, and I see some wonderful people on there. So I'm just going to start at the top, and I'm Scott, and I'm in Oregon. And so, how about Linda Henderry? She might be muted.
Oops, well, I'm from Mississippi.
Mississippi, and Pam.
South Carolina.
Pam's in South Carolina, and Joyce and Sandy.
Talent Phoenix, Oregon.
Yeah. And Emily.
Tennessee.
And she's the only 10 I see.
Oh,
And
nice.
Barbara.
Hi, Honolulu, Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Oh,
We have really nice weather here.
Yeah.
aloha.
Uh, and I'll introduce Bonnie Teeples, and you guys kind of know her. I'm actually Bonnie's husband. I still have that name tag from the first national conference I went to, and nobody knew me, so I just I took a sticky note and put Bonnie's husband. Then everybody
Yeah,
was.
I've
Uh,
had that kind.
hey, I'm going to highlight you, Bonnie. Spotlight.
Okay. Well, I am going to go ahead and share my screen right off the bat. Oh, Scott, you need to let me share.
Oh, okay. No, no, I don't want to share. I want to let you share.
Hold a picture of me.
Sorry about that.
All right.
Okay, you should be able to do it now.
All right. There we go.
We're not seeing it. Oh, there we go.
There you go. And I need to move this. Okay, so I can go.
Right there.
There we go. All right. Put that up out of my way.
And a
So
plastic bag.
So this presentation is dealing with the last three sections of food security and the world we live in. As many of you know, we started the food security in 2000. Well, we actually had two. In 2019, we had a resolution was passed in 2023 and one in 2020, one in 2019 that had to do with food sovereignty and food security, food waste. And I felt an immense drive to get information out to our people about food security and what it is, how it affects the world that we live in. I know that sometimes Scott takes offense at this, being so women oriented, but women disproportionately bear the burden of food insecurity. It affects every country on earth, and the gendered reality of food security transcends borders. When times are tough, gender discrimination means women and girls may be the first to eat less, even as they work harder to secure food for their households. For pregnant and lactating women, inadequate food and poor nutrition imposes risk of anemia, the leading cause of death during childbirth. Through ACWW policy, education development projects, we help rural women access and control productive resources to increase their income security and sustain higher agriculture productivity. We use our advocacy opportunities to advance gender and climate smart agriculture policies, encouraging governments to engage with Indigenous people in their communities with their vast experience of sustainable land management and food production, and advocate for food sovereignty. So food security, what does it mean to you? Anybody have any ideas?
Seeds. We need to be sure our seeds are kept viable.
Okay, that is a very good part of it. Anything else?
Well, it's the availability or the ability to be able to get food,
Yeah.
reasonable food, and without traveling huge amounts of time of distance. And due to the fact that some people where they live, it has to be further. Like if you live way out in the country, you're going to have to drive some distance. But sometimes even in a large city, it's difficult to get uh, good food.
And also, when he says good food, he means balanced, nutritious food, not just junk food or potato chips, snacks, etc.
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
and unfortunately, Pam, in those, and you know this, in those areas where the what they call the food deserts, in the little stores that they have, very few of them have quality, nutritious food. Most of it is just the snacks and whatnot that they can buy. However, I do understand that I've read that Dollar General in some areas has put in fruits and vegetables and frozen meats, which is a good thing for those areas that's all they have to rely on. So, food security is the ability to access safe, nutritious, and sufficient food at all times. It means having access to plenty of food sources for a well balanced diet to achieve a healthy life. It includes physical, social, and economic access to food supplies. One thing that I talked about when we talked about food deserts is the fact that, just as Scott mentioned, even in some of the big cities, they do not have ready grocery stores close enough that they can get the food that they need. A lot of the grocery stores, due to lack of people, have closed down. So they have to travel. And most of those people do not have cars of their own. They're either on bus or other public transport.
Well, one thing that's kind of shut down some of those food stores and stuff like that is the increased amount of theft that is going on,
Yeah,
and basically it's just put them out of business.
it has. And we see that happening even in our community. Stores are just giving up because they absolutely cannot combat the amount of theft and destruction that's happening. Food security also results in better health outcomes. Good food strengthens the body, replenishes energy, and provides nutrients. Overall health and well-being is the goal of having good, secure, good, healthy food. Healthy diets help reduce the risk of malnutrition, heart disease, cancer, and other diseases. Lastly, food security contributes to economic well-being. The United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, which is UNDESA, estimates that around 4.5 billion people rely on agriculture and food systems for their livelihood. This sector provides jobs for the community, enabling them to sustain themselves in the long run. And that is particularly true of rural women. Globally, almost 1/3 of employed women work in agriculture. That is not accounting the self-employed or family workers. Yet, only 13% of women are landholders. 828 million people experienced severe food insecurity in 2021. The figures for 2022 through 2024 are likely to be worse around the world. So there are 4 pillars of, well, we've been over that. 4 pillars of food security. That is access, availability, utilization, and stability. We're going to talk about those individually a little bit because I think it's important that we understand what each one of those means. So access is an adequate supply. It means you have the household finances to be able to purchase that good food and that you have an education to how to use that food. Availability, that talks about the production. A lot of times, and we saw this so much during COVID when people weren't out, schools were closed, and food was just being plowed under because there was not an immediate need. Well, there was a need for it, but there wasn't a way of getting it to the people. Storage is another important part of availability. I remember when I was really young and growing up, I lived on a ranch in Nevada, and we did not have a large grocery store. We did have a little grocery store. And even in that little grocery store, they had what he called a cold room off to the side. And it was well insulated, was colder than any other part of the store. But I can remember going in there with my mom and seeing the the root systems on some of those potatoes that he had stored in there. You know, they'd been in there for quite a while. They were getting wrinkly, but boy, were they putting out the roots. So adequate storage is important. Distribution. It's difficult to maintain all of the food being still good when it is shipped. By the time it gets to the stores, sometimes it's been on trucks for days in cold storage. And you know yourself, you'll go in and start going through tomatoes and you'll find a lot of them that are absolutely no good. The utilization. Food intake. Food with good nutritional value is critical, and this includes how we prepare the food to ensure safety and healthy living. Sufficient calorie and nutrient intake by individuals is possible when there is good feeding practices. Diversity of diet and informed balance of food at the household level. This also applies to food waste in our homes and communities. We are extremely fortunate in the United States, in most areas of the United States, that we have a good diversity of diet. Stability. Is the food resource readily available, or does it fluctuate during sudden shocks? Food secure communities must have a steady flow of food supplies, enough to feed everyone. They must also prepare food stocks in case of emergencies. There are a lot of factors that can affect the food supply. And if any of these pillars or a combination of these pillars are missing, food deserts are part of the results. Now, I don't know, most of you know that Scott and I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the things that the church has advocated since early 1800s is to have a store of food. They started off with wheat and then added other things to it. And you know yourself how sometimes when a disaster strikes, how fortunate you are to have food stores in your home. Maybe it's not all the fresh fruits and vegetables, but you have things in your home that you can still put a good nutritious meal on the table for a short term.
Bonnie, sometimes that is also not only food shortages, but sometimes it's caused by unemployment or
That's true.
less employment.
Yeah. Yeah, not a good enough employment to be able to have a steady flow of food. And we sure see that in areas. We have a really large food pantry here, food bank. And they do supply some of the smaller food pantries around, which I'm very grateful for, because several of the little churches have their own food pantry, so that when people come on Sunday, they can take a box of food home with them. I think they're open on like Saturdays and Fridays for packing up, and then on Sundays they have boxes ready for people to take after church, so that they have food for the next week, or at least for a few days.
I think
So-
that church right over there does. I think that church right over there does it. Yeah.
I think it's a good plan. So we've been talking a little bit about food deserts, and this comes from the the earlier year, the first year I did a presentation, did the focus was on food deserts. And you know, it isn't just in low income areas. It isn't just in underserved communities or underserved countries that there are food deserts. Judy Fulmer, our national FCE president, in their little town, the grocery store burnt down. So
Oh,
now they have to drive over 100 miles to a grocery store that is, that they can get a good stock of groceries. So, it isn't just in those underserved areas. A food desert, though, is the lack of convenient, affordable, healthy food, usually, but not always, in high poverty areas, and usually with higher rates of vacant homes. We've talked about how they can be identified, smaller population, access to food as measured by distance to a store or by the numbers of stores in an area, household resources, including family income or vehicle availability, neighborhood resources, such as the average income of the neighborhood and the availability of public transportation. Now, one of the things that some areas are doing, and I know Philadelphia had started it as well, I think it may have been in Chicago, that at bus stops, they would have little pop-up farmers markets. And I thought that was a really smart thing to do because not everybody can even get to a farmer's market. But if they can take it to a bus stop a couple of days a week, then people have the
wow,
opportunity,
that's great.
yeah, of getting
Hmm.
food.
Do they charge there
I'm
at
sure
the
they do.
bus
They probably
stop?
don't charge the people that are setting up. In fact, I know that one of them that I read about does not, but the farmers are still selling their food. But I'm sure they're just like any other food market, food farmers market. It's a lot less than in the grocery stores for higher
Yeah.
quality of food. Um, Pop-up farmers markets in area that have little or no access to fresh food was really a good thing when those started happening. Another thing that some communities are doing are supporting a community garden. We have several in our community. Some of them are supported by the Extension Service or started by the Extension Service, and some of them were just vacant lots. And the people that owned the lots allowed people to come in and set up food garden beds, and then it's a shared thing. You have your little plot, and I have my little plot, and it seems to have been working well in several of the areas. My son and his wife live in a high-rise apartment building in Seattle. On the roof, the apartment managers had already put tubs where people could have gardens, but they had started out just growing greenery, grass, little shrubs and stuff to make it a more pleasant place to visit. But when food security became quite a talked about subject, the apartment managers did turn those tubs into areas where the people that rent in the apartment building can plant gardens. And then they opened 3 really big areas where it was for a community. Everybody would plant something in it, and then anybody could harvest off of it. So they have their own, Ron and Jody have their own couple of tubs for them. And then they also contribute to the community garden for everybody to take. And he said it has worked out very well for the whole apartment building. Some of them don't participate, but most of them are enjoying it. And he said it has really built a sense of community because there'll be people up there working in their little garden spots at the same time, and they all visit and talk. And Ronald, for 2 years, put out a little hive that's for leafcutter bees. So those bees would pollinate all the plants that were up there.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of factors that interface with food security. At a global and individual level, it is impeded by multiple long-term challenges which fluctuate over time and geographical region. These factors worsen existing intersecting inequalities, further reducing women's and families' equitable access to food. Each of these critical factors shows why we need genuine change in our systems and focus on more equitable control over food systems. So the first one that we're going to talk about is climate change. And I know that, you know, there's so much going on worldwide with climate change. You can see it in worsening storms. You can see it in worsening droughts. And that is one of the things that we as a people all need to be aware of. Extreme weather events, drought, seasonal changes reduce yield growth, productivity, and availability of food supplies. Thus, food production systems need measures in order to adapt to climate change. That is one of the 3 areas of focus that ACWW has with the projects that we're doing. It's called Climate Smart Agriculture. And they are working with, you know, we still do the, they have to apply. The people that want a project, want money for a project, have to apply. It's a real vetting system. We don't just give anybody money to do a project. One of the projects that really got this in motion is many years ago, and I know it was CWC they're not the sponsor of it, but they're the ones that did the fundraising for it. And they had, they call them polytunnels in Mongolia, where they set up big polytunnels where people can grow food longer, because Mongolia is pretty cold, but in the greenhouses, basically, they can grow food, they can use it to sell, and they can eat it. And that has been a real eye-opener for a lot of people worldwide when they see what can be done in certain areas. That Mongolia project has morphed into even more projects going on. Those women who were working in those polytunnels have been able to plant food that they can have for themselves. They were able to sell some, thus improving their families' livelihoods. So energy security. Agriculture requires an intensive amount of energy use. Therefore, accessible and affordable energy is required to strengthen agriculture food supply chains. Energy is also vital for the consumption of food. We visited Yuma, Arizona a few years ago, and were able to go down, it was late fall, able to go down into around their lettuce. They won't let you in the fields, but around where their lettuce is being grown. And, you know, even just the water that they need takes energy to get it there. You know, you either have to have a pump or you have to have sprinkling systems, something to get that water to those plants. That's the same worldwide. It isn't just the power at the dams, you know, sending the water down. It's all aspects of the production process. And then after the lettuce is grown, it takes energy to harvest it, takes energy to store it, takes energy to package it. So we need to think about our energy use, and make sure that there's enough energy that we all can have what we need to grow. I think about some of the areas in, for instance, Africa, some of those women for their gardens. Not too much now, but we're still going to a communal pump, sometimes miles away from their home, to get pots of water to water their plants just for their families.
Oh.
So, getting water to them has been a real big push. And that's part of the energy security, the water security. Conflict. Do you ever think about what conflict has done to our global food sources? From World War II to the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine, wars continue to harshly impact food production systems around the world. The Russia and Ukraine, these two countries produce 1/4 of the global wheat supply, making them the largest suppliers of grains around the world.
Wow.
Ukraine, for example, delivers 40% of wheat and corn to Africa and the Middle East. Because of the halt in grain supply, those regions face food shortages and food price hikes like we've never seen. Population displacement, violence, and conflict-related ill health also play a major role. So then water security. Just like energy, it is essential to food security. It's necessary for growing crops, raising livestock. Recent data show that agriculture is the largest water user on the globe. This sector consumes almost 70% of freshwater reserves for human use. Moreover, the United Nations estimates show that by 2050, water consumption for just humans will increase significantly. Down in the southwest of the United States, because of all the droughts, some of those lakes that were holding areas for the water that waters the plants down in that area, the crops, they were almost empty. I know that you probably saw pictures on the news a couple of years ago about Lake Mead and how there was barely just a trickle running down and thank heaven we have had some good storms and good snows, and those amounts are coming up. Shasta Lake, just maybe 90 miles south of us, if it's that, it was so empty that they said it would take at least 10 years to fill that lake back up. Thank heaven for 3 years of really good snowpack, and it's full again. And that water not only waters Northern California plants, but it is canaled down into Central and Southern California for all the plants that are grown there. So do any of you have any comments or thoughts about this before I ask you a final question?
Any questions?
Well, we're finding out on the water situation, and we're finding out that we have to use our water a lot different. And the tremendous amounts of water are being recycled. As a matter of fact, several cities, and I don't remember where I was watching it, they have changed to where all of their water is after it goes actually down through your house and goes out your house and actually goes to the sewage treatment plants, and then they are now using that water after it's been treated correctly for irrigation for plants because they just can't afford to get rid of it anymore. And a lot of people don't realize this that actually live in Las Vegas, but 100% of their water use is recycled and put back into the municipal system.
I think maybe here in our valley, they might do that too.
I think probably, Joyce, a lot of valley, areas are starting to do that. I know Scott and I were watching something the other day, and he said he can't remember where it was, and I can't either. But they were recycling, like showers, sink water, all that kind of stuff for irrigation.
Well, there
Uh,
are some, yeah, and there are some communities in California now they're allowing you to actually, and anybody that does an RV, you have two tanks. You have a black water tank and a gray water tank.
Yeah.
Now they're actually having where in homes you build a home and you actually have a gray water tank, which is just water that comes off your shower, it comes out of your sink. It is not sewage. And anyway, you actually store that water, and then when you water your lawns or anything outside, you're using that water. And actually, it's really good for it because, and a lot of times the detergent that you use in washing your dishes and washing your body, the plants actually like it.
That's great.
Well, there's so much political mess in it. It hasn't been long that we're not able to store rainwater. It's against the law.
it was for a long time, and
It
especially
was
over
for
in
a
your
long
area.
time, but we need
Yep,
education for just homes. People's
yep,
use of water in their homes when they're letting water run and they're not reusing water or saving what they run off to wash their vegetables to, rinse out stuff before they want to put it in the dishwasher, for heaven's sake.
yep.
So our domestic use of water in our homes, people aren't paying any attention to using less or saving it or using it more wisely. That isn't even taken into consideration. I don't think there's much education towards that.
I think you're right, Joyce or Sandy, and that comes right back to what we can do as a people to help people understand what they can
Just
do
get
to help.
education out there. All
Well,
they
it
have to
is
do is put it
education.
on TV or
Yep,
TikTok or Facebook or some darn thing that people spend all their time with their nose in.
you're right. But you are correct too that several years ago it was illegal in many places in Oregon to store your rainwater.
Yeah.
There was a guy, in fact, there was a guy over in some place in your valley over there that, of course, he had set up a pond with all his rainwater, and they made him let that go. But there's no reason why we can't recycle some of that water and use it for watering our lawns. Scott's mom used to do that all the time. Her
Well, it
washing
takes a
machine.
bucket and it takes a little energy and it takes a little time away from whatever else we're doing.
Yep.
But families need to be educated in how they can cut back on the water usage, not just by
Well,
raising the price of the water they use.
Carrie Mock from our area did a presentation on water, precious water. And that's one thing that she brought up. And Scott said he thinks about her all the time he goes in to get in the shower. She said, put a bucket in your
Yeah,
shower because you got
yeah,
that water running and it's going down the drain. Put a bucket in there, save that water, water your plants with it.
yep,
Oh,
yep.
yeah. My
So,
my shower is a long ways away from the hot water, so
yep.
I have to run it a long time before I can get hot water. But I never thought about
But every
catching.
home has those kinds of things going on that we waste water, not because we want to waste water, but because we want to use what we have in the way we need it.
Yes, right. There's so much we can do with water. And I spent a week down in St. George with my sister, both of my sisters, and um, she really brought it home to me. She does keep a bucket in her kitchen sink that she catches all the water from. And of course, their water is warm to start with because it's so hot down there. You really don't have to wait for hot water to get to the
No,
shower because
not
it's
in there
always
either.
so warm. But she does keep a bucket in her kitchen sink when she washes her vegetables or whatnot, and then she takes it out and dumps it on some of the plants outside.
Yeah,
So, any
and
other
it
thoughts?
takes a few minutes and,
Yep, yep.
planning but I think we don't even, kids at school have absolutely no concept of that. None.
Well, because water has, well,
It's
not
not
always.
taught anywhere. You can't even get girls now that get out of high school. They've had no home ec. They don't know how to boil water unless they have a home that has taught
That
them.
teaches. So
Just read
anybody?
a food thing on the internet. You look. I get a couple of bulletins of recipes from gals, and there are questions below. And these poor young ladies are writing in because they don't understand basic what we grew up with. It's very sad. The
Well, it is,
questions
but
they ask. They
it
have
is.
had no training. I think home ec needs to be brought back into the schools.
Well, that's probably not going to happen, but
No, it's not.
yeah,
Because food is different than what we grew up with too.
that's true. That is true. So does anybody have any comments about what you can do to help develop a food secure community after listening?
If you have a garden and have um, more than you
Extras.
can use, some of my neighbors have been set up. They're letting people have. You can help. Like one of my neighbors had walnuts, and you could just take them from before, so you could, instead of throwing it away, or you can share.
Yeah.
That's right.
Come pick blackberries more. Black currants. Soon to be great.
You got a lot, huh, Sandy?
Well, I haul it around and beg everybody to come pick.
Any other thoughts?
Can we get this lesson and share it with, say, when we
Is
start?
it only on Zoom or will it have a paper?
It has the speaker notes that go with it, Sandy, and I'll make sure you guys get the PowerPoint and the speaker notes.
Okay,
Okay. Yep.
thank you.
That would be good because we're backwards here.
Oh, yeah. No, you're not.
Hey, I think this might be your first Zoom one that you've come to.
Yeah, it
It
is.
is.
Uh-huh.
We had to poke each other with the elbow. Hey, we got to go do this. Figure it out.
Well, it's kind of like going for a boat ride, right?
It
Yeah.
was.
So Pam, do you have any ideas of what we can do?
I was just thinking that being aware of it more, I mean, I think we take for granted, and to be aware of it and, like somebody said earlier, share that knowledge, educate other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I agree. Anybody else?
Um, you shared with us a year ago or whatever, ACWW put out a brochure on food insecurity.
Yes.
That might help them because it has some of the same information you use today, that would be a great thing to share with people.
I will print some over and send them over to them or get it to them. That's a good reminder. Thank you.
They're actually part of
Thank you. Yes.
they're part of our county. I'm trying to find that lesson that Carrie wrote.
Yeah, that water lesson is really a good reminder for all of us to be more careful. So, any other thoughts? Okay.
Well,
Well,
thank
thank
you for sharing.
you for the lesson.
Well, thank you, Bonnie. And I just want to tell you before you run off, next month I am going to do a presentation. I'm going to talk about essays, at all levels. And Oregon actually does a second grade and a third grade. And then they do the fourth grade one, which is also part of the national FCE essay. And then this year we started Oregon started last year, and then this year we did the high school essay contest. And Pam, I know that you guys aren't part of FCE, but if you know some information on how to get it set up or anything like that, I'd be glad to help you on it.
Okay.
I'll tell you, when we read these essays, we in Oregon we have 7 of us that judge them, and Linda's on here. Linda Neiseth, I see, came on. You read these essays, and this year it was trustworthiness, and the year before it was on citizenship. And I'll tell you, sometimes they make you cry a little bit about and with joy on how our young people, it gives you hope for the future with some of these young
There's somebody out
Oh.
there that gives us
they,
hope.
they just write such wonderful things. And we played those at the national conference this year, and the girl from Mississippi and the boy from Oregon, and they're both outstanding essays. And just talk about the kids on there. So anyway, I'll talk about how to kind of set them up and get them going. And it'll be the first Wednesday in September. So I'll be emailing that out. I appreciate everybody being here. Anybody else got anything to say? I asked Bonnie before you leave. And
Well,
again,
thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you. This
thank
was
you for
wonderful.
the lesson.
and Pam, I think everybody else knows this, but every one of our Zoom, this was number 56 that we've done. And those are all available on the Oregon FCE website. They're actually recorded on YouTube, but it's easier to find the links for them there and just click on it and it'll open up for you.
I've sat in on several of Bonnie's, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes,
Well,
and
they're
I
all
appreciate
recorded.
it, Pam.
And I do too. Thank you very much. And I
All
will
right.
let's go.
Have a great
Thanks,
week,
thank
Have
everybody.
a
you.
great day.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I have a question for Bonnie and Scott before you leave.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
let me stop the recording.
Either they turn it off or you.